Hi, Senator Ricciardi.
We are all set.
Hi, how are you? Sorry for the delay.
No problem.
All right, are we all set?
We are all set. We are live.
All right, well, I want to welcome everyone to Transportation, our second meeting of the session. It's good to see everyone again. I'm going to go ahead and read the right to know information. And so welcome. I am Senator Regina Birdsall from District 19. Today we will be holding a meeting of the State Transportation Committee. Before we get started, I'll read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting that we are holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order, number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which it was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that 1, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom or YouTube, and via phone by following directions and links provided on the General Court's website. 2, we have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. 3, we are providing a mechanism for a public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us, and I'll repeat that, remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us, or you can call 603-271-6931. And 4, in the event the public is unable to access the meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Finally, let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state where they are and if anyone else is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I will call the roll. Senator Waters.
Senator Waters here in Dover, alone in this room.
Senator Ward.
I'm in my home and started, alone in the room.
Senator Ricciardi.
Good afternoon, Senator Ricciardi in my home in Bedford alone.
Senator Sherman.
Senator Sherman at my home in Rye, alone.
And I am, again, Senator Regina Birdsall. I am in my home in Hampstead, but my husband is in the office upstairs and will be coming in and out periodically. So with that, am I on track, Kirsten? I just want to make sure.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I'm going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 116, and Senator Waters, you have the gavel because it's my bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to Senate Transportation.
Thank you. For the record, my name is, again, Regina Birdsall, State Senator for District 19, which encompasses the town of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham. And I am the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 116, which is relative to the project to complete construction of an exit on I-93 in Derry and Londonderry, and that would be exit 4A. This is just requiring that the Department of Transportation, because of the information that came out, I believe last summer, that there were some issues of the budget going over on exit 4A, that this bill is requiring that DOT complete the Derry Londonderry project to construct their exit 4A on 93 within the time frame of the 10-year transportation improvement plan. So with that, I will take any questions.
Well, thank you, Senator Birdsell. And I do have a question. Isn't it the case that this is just an essential that we get this project done on time because of not only traffic flow, but also the potential for development related to getting this done?
Correct. The towns of Londonderry and Derry have were required to put money towards this, and they have, and it's been going on for almost 30 years, I believe. And I think it's time, because Londonderry has some major development that they want put forth, as does Derry, with some of the projects that they're looking at putting forth. They're going to need exit 4A. So thank you for the question.
And just one more before I turn to the rest of the committee. So essentially, this bill will keep it on track. Expect them to, find the funding, and I think we have some good hopes of some federal funding coming in to help out. And so this is what this bill will do is it'll make sure that the funding is found and the project goes forward.
That is correct, and I'm sure that we will work very hard to help them find the funding.
Thank you. And questions from other members of the committee? Senator Sherman.
Just maybe a little historical perspective. It strikes me as a little unusual to pull something out of the 10-year plan and be approaching it this way. And it sounds like there's been significant delay in getting this done, and I'm all for getting things done. I'm just wondering why we are doing this way, why we're doing it through separate statute rather than through the 10-year plan, capital budget, all that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you for the question, Senator. It is actually in the 10-year plan, and it is the DOT that came forth this summer and pushed. They pushed the plan out, I think, 2 or 3 years, and they have brought it back a little bit. But this is basically a sign saying we need this done on time, hopefully on budget, and if not, let's try and find the funding for it.
So
Yes, go ahead with your follow-up.
just a quick follow-up. So essentially, the reason why it's being done this way is to make sure it gets done now, rather than having it kicked down the road, so to speak.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the committee members? Well, seeing none, thank you, Senator Birdsell. And
Thank
I'll
you.
turn it back over to Kristen to call the next person wishing to testify,
I will be bringing in,
or Tricia.
yeah, that's okay. Bill Cass from the DOT. Mr.
Well,
Cass,
welcome, Bill.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mine, good. I just wanted to offer any opportunity to answer any questions. I think Senator Birdsell framed it well. Well, let me start. Just introduce myself. I'm William Cass, the Assistant Commissioner for the DOT. Thank you again for letting me testify here. And if there are any questions, I just want, there is some history, and I think the senator is aware of that, but I just wanted to assure the committee that we know it's a priority. It's a priority for us. It's a priority for the towns. We did have an issue with the design build bids that they came in quite high. So we've dropped back and are pursuing an aggressive schedule to do a conventional procurement and a conventional design bid build approach to the project. And again, just reassure the committee and the towns that it is a priority to the department. We're fully committed to it. It is funded in the 10-year plan. I think we've lost about a year from the original design build schedule, but we are committed to prosecuting this project, executing this project as expeditiously as possible. So I'll just leave it at that and take any questions the committee might have.
Any questions from the committee? So I'll just to follow up on something there, Bill. Would it be fair to say that, we had a lot of conversation about design build as a principle for DOT projects and a lot of conversation about that. And it was with, some confidence and if not instruction from the legislature that this would be potentially a good approach, and that it really was kind of a surprise to us all that that it just didn't work. Is that more or less the case?
Yes, it's very much the case. And in hindsight, with some of the debriefs and reviewing the things, I think our assessment at this point in time is it probably wasn't, with the right-of-way involvement and things like that, it probably wasn't the best candidate project for a design build procurement. But we were motivated at the time of delivering as quickly as possible, but the costs that came in weren't, we couldn't justify the bid prices that had come in. So.
Well, thank you. And just before I turn to Lieutenant Sherman, just say that I appreciate the department's flexibility and nimbleness in doing everything that you can to get this project back on track. Senator Sherman.
Yeah, just a quick question. Hi, Bill. Just wanted to know if this bill is actually going to make a difference in the timeline. Is it going to speed it up, or is it going as fast as it can?
I think it's going as fast as it can. I think regardless of this bill, we're motivated to deliver the project. There is we certainly understand there's a lot of interest from the communities. And we recognize that as a priority and are moving it forward. With that said, certainly understanding from the policy standpoint of the Senate Transportation Commission committee having that statement that it is a priority not only for the two communities and for the department, but a community in your all's eyes from the state because of the the economic development potential as well as the traffic relief. That I guess it's always helpful to have that recognition from a policy standpoint from the Senate Transportation Committee.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Tricia, anyone else?
You're muted, Trish.
Yeah.
I got this. Okay. Signed up to speak next is Dave Karen.
Welcome, Dave.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Karen, you should be all set to speak.
Try this again. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Karen. I'm the town administrator in Derry, and I appreciate this opportunity to voice my support for Senate Bill 116 relative to the completion of Exit 4A on 93 within the time frame of the 10-year transportation plan. This project was originally a priority for the towns of Derry and Londonderry for decades. Originally conceived and funded by the towns to address traffic and economic development issues, the state in recent years adopted the program and included the program in its 10-year transportation plan. Environmental permits have now been secured, along with approval from the Federal Highway Administration, and the project is now poised for construction under the guidance of the State Department of Transportation. As Bill just alluded to, NHDOT did accept design build proposals in 2020. However, this construction method proved too expensive, which required NHDOT to revert to the traditional design bid build method. As I understand it, NHDOT plans to award the design contract in the coming months, with construction anticipated to begin in the spring of 2022 and completion anticipated by summer of 2026. Unlike any other project in New Hampshire, which is designed to alleviate regional transportation challenges, the towns of Derry and Londonderry have each committed $5 million in local dollars to this project. This project has advanced from its conceptual stage over 3 decades ago to nearing construction. The town of Derry would appreciate the legislature's support for this project and would encourage this committee to add specificity to Senate Bill 166 by requiring this project be completed within the current project schedule as developed by NHDOT. Again, thank you for the opportunity to offer comment, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if I could.
Thank you. Any questions from the members of the committee? Well, seeing none, fingers crossed, Dave. Help is on the way.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, we have Kevin Smith, who has his hand raised. I'm going to bring him in.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, you should be all set to speak.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin Smith, Town Manager with the Town of Londonderry. I would just echo the comments from Dave Karen that were highly supportive of this legislation. I think perhaps my only comment of something that may want to be added is that the schedule that is currently in the 10-year highway plan, that it stay on schedule with what has been laid out by DOT as of January of this year, which is a construction start date in the spring of 2022. While we appreciate the legislature's willingness to pass this legislation so that it is completed within the 10-year highway plan, as we know, sometimes these projects have a tendency to move further down in that plan. And given that both towns have already committed and expended $5 million on this project, would like to see it maintained to its current schedule.
Well, thank you. And any questions from the committee members? Well, I'll just say thanks to Senator Birdsall. I think we're going to get it done. And thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Tricia, anyone else?
Okay, no, we do not have any other hands raised. If anybody else would like to speak to this bill, could you just raise your hand? And if you are on the phone, you can virtually raise your hand by dialing *9. Okay, there are no other hands, Senator.
Thank you. I will close the hearing on this bill. And Madam Chairman, would you like Madam Chair, would you like a motion for exec?
It's
Well, we have, we're, I think, running late for the,
no, it's not till 1:30.
oh, is it?
no, well, the calendar says 1:15.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my mistake. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, all yours then, Madam Chair. Maybe at the end, huh?
Maybe. Okay, so 131. So I will open the hearing on Senate Bill 131, and the first named senator on it is Senator Waters for section 1.
Well,
Senator
thank
Waters.
you so much, Madam Chair and members of the Senate Transportation Committee. For the record, Senator David Waters, District 4, and here to introduce Part 1 of Senate Bill 131. And you know, bear with me. It's got a lot of moving parts, as I suppose the transportation bill ought to have. And this is relative to electric vehicle supply equipment and infrastructure, and also relative to state motor fleet management. Just a little bit of background for what you see here. 3 years ago, we passed a bill to establish the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Commission, that broad-based group of representatives of the legislature, representatives of the auto industry, of utilities, and other interested parties met for a couple of years and just assembled a great deal of information, assisted greatly by Matt Melou in Office of Strategic Initiatives, and also assisted greatly by Governor Sununu, who asked that a report be commissioned on suitable corridors and strategies for New Hampshire, and that through the Department of Business and Economic Affairs, that report was really helpful in shaping the committee. And so the committee unanimously approved a final report in December, and it had several recommendations. So what you're seeing before you is more or less the recommendations from that commission report. And it gives you some of the general conclusions about why electric vehicle infrastructure is going to be important for New Hampshire. It's going to be good to help with our transportation system move to renewable sources. But I think most particularly on page 2 and Roman 2 there, what this means for the New Hampshire economy. That this particularly is going to help our tourism economy, job development, support consumers, businesses in particular, and automobile dealers and manufacturers as well if we have this infrastructure grow. There are relatively few electric vehicles right now in New Hampshire. The sales are rapidly escalating, but the areas around us, Quebec, 40% of its new vehicle sales are electric as of the last few months, and then Massachusetts and New England states have very aggressive plans for electric vehicles and electric vehicle infrastructure. So this would be good for New Hampshire's economy. Also in part 3, we had a lot of work with the utilities who are really eager to make their investments to have the grid infrastructure in place to support electric vehicle infrastructure as well. And why do we have to be ready, and why do we have to do this? In particular, because of the rapid acceleration of the rollout of electric vehicles. And this is what New Hampshire consumers are going to be seeing increasingly, and what we're going to be seeing wanting to use our roads from tourists and people on business and otherwise. I mean, for example, GM, as you know, 21 new models of electric vehicles are coming out in the next few years. Volvo yesterday joined a number of automobile companies who said they're going to stop building and selling electric vehicles by 2030 or 2035. And also several countries and states are now, including Massachusetts, have enacted laws that say that they will not allow the sale of conventionally fueled vehicles after 2035. So a great deal of momentum around this, and it's a reason to get our roads ready. Secondly, there's great movement as well, not just in passenger vehicles, but also in heavier duty vehicles. Mack, Peterbilt, and Lion have all unveiled the heaviest of their truck platforms as electric vehicle. Lion, Quebec company, and others are also rolling out school buses and vans as well. So there's little question but that the industry is moving in this direction, and that's one of the reasons for the interest of New Hampshire auto dealers, that we open this path so they can sell some of these cars and have some consumer confidence around it. So to accomplish these goals, the bill does a few things. The governor, can you still hear me?
Yep, we can.
I somehow lost my video. Let me get back in.
We can see you.
Okay. Well, I'll figure that out later. I'll just continue on my way. There we are. You're back. Sorry for that.
Okay.
So Governor Sununu took the lead in using the Volkswagen settlement funding. He decided that the maximum amount from the Volkswagen settlement funding should go into electric vehicles and electric vehicle infrastructure. And he set up several pots of money. Some went to the state agencies, some went for school buses, and then the majority of it was to create a fast charge and potentially level 2 charge system on our transportation corridors. And so what this bill does, you'll see on page 2, section 4, is that it affirms that and then offers some potential ways to get that program up and running. It enables the OSI and the state to, if they think it'd be quicker to get these things built, to contract with or form a partnership with a company to roll these out. We should see a new RFP on this very, very soon. So this puts something else in the toolbox for that as well. Also, it prioritizes too, we heard a lot from the municipalities and from less traveled routes that probably couldn't support the initial expense of a fast charge system for level 2 systems. And this will help a lot with municipalities, their downtown parking, businesses, and so forth. So we ask that the Office of Strategic Initiatives, considering allocating a portion of these funds to do a program so municipalities could apply for some funding if they wanted to establish in their downtown areas some charging stations. Also important for the utilities, we authorize utilities to do the make-ready work. So they basically bring in the power, and then another entity would be responsible for the purchase and installation of the station itself. We also want to make sure that any of the funds that we use by the state that's spend, that they be accessible and not to the public and not proprietary plugs. As you've seen with one company in particular, that if we're going to spend state money on it, everybody ought to be able to use it. Now, going forward after the Volkswagen funding, there is the issue of how do we keep supporting the development of a charging station system. So you'll see in here on page 3, maybe it's the third rail of electrifying people, but I propose here that there be an additional fee put on electric vehicles that then is specifically used for electric vehicle supply equipment, the infrastructure. And, I know Norm Major has had several bills about looking at a surcharge for a variety of reasons, but this is just in electric vehicles and they're going to get something for it. And I hope that that's something that even in our fee averse or surcharge averse times we'd understand is basically a user fee. If you want to have one of these cars, you want to be able to charge it in, just chip in a little bit to help pay for that. We also further down on that page say that cities and towns under 79E might provide a tax relief on the value of electric vehicle supply equipment installed in residential homes and rental properties, businesses and industries. It's just enabling. But if a municipality thought that they wanted to encourage folks who are developing in a downtown under 79E, hey, put in some charging stations, and that can be included as part of the tax benefit that we're giving you under 79E. The next part of the bill, starting at the bottom of page 3, may look familiar to some of my colleagues because we looked at this and passed this previously to bring the a program of electric vehicle transition for the state fleet. And we passed this bill a few years ago. The governor had some issues with parts of it, and it was vetoed. I have some hopes that there is a sense now that with that where we are now and the cost situation having changed somewhat, that this might have some success this time. So just to be very brief on this, that what it does is it sets the state fleet on a path for light vehicles and then also for heavy vehicles, on a path towards new purchases and new leases to move as feasible towards a ZEV. So it could be, it could be hydrogen or other kind of forms, but primarily it'll be electric vehicles. There are important exceptions here that as feasible, particularly notes law enforcement and other, I think the snow plows, that's an issue about whether you can have any downtime for charging or not. So it takes into account all of that. I think we're going to hear from Becky Oller, if she's signed up to testify, that in the annual list of vehicles based by cost that was put out for the very first time, an electric vehicle was on the list and actually was top of the list for cost of operation. So we've come to the tipping point where these vehicles are not really any more expensive than conventionally powered vehicles, and over their lifetime, the state could save really tens or hundreds of millions of dollars on maintenance costs, because the cost of operation, let alone fuel costs, is so much lower than standard vehicle. So you'll see in this section how that's going to be done. It sets up a committee. It asks state agencies to take this into account and start planning for it. They've got a long time to do this. It's probably I wouldn't be surprised if it happens a lot sooner, but it's not saying you have to take some car or truck and put it out of service and its normal lifetime. If it comes up, you're going to be buying a new one, and it's feasible to do this, then this is what we would do. I'm going to move now to page 5, and there's some language in here about the low carbon fuel standards program under 21.0:23. And Madam Chair, I think I'd just like to drop this section. I just think it's really moot and not necessary in the bill. So, as we consider this bill, I'd like to drop that. The next part of the last part of the bill has to do with the Public Utilities Commission and working with the utilities and a lot of others on the EV Commission, and looking at what other states are doing to make sure that the power that comes through these stations is actually affordable and is done in a way that doesn't hit people with certain demand charges. These are some guidance that would go to the PUC. In this context, I will say that the PUC is working on a docket on charging stations. That a bill that we passed 3 years ago, Senate Bill 575, mandated that they do. That docket is underway. And so I think these are good principles here, but they really would work in tandem with what comes out with that docket, which I think will look a lot like answering each one of these here. But that's why this part is here. So thank you, Madam Chairman. That's it.
You are muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Senator Waters. That's pretty comprehensive bill. I appreciate it.
Senator Bertzel?
Yes.
I know you're next on the list, but we have Senator Prentice is on right now. Do you want to let her introduce her part? I know it's taken her out of order,
Sure.
but she wasn't going to be able to be here later.
If she wants to, that's fine. What section is she?
Section 9, Madam Chair.
I think 8.
Oh,
8.
excuse me. I'm so
Senator
sorry.
Carson is 9.
Yeah,
Senator
8.
Prentice, are you okay to introduce now?
I'm here, Tricia. Thank you very much. And
Sure.
Senator Birdsdale, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. This is brief. I'm members of the committee. I am introducing this section of Senate Bill 131 to allow for EMS professionals, whether career or volunteer, to have a decal for their motor vehicle plates on their personal vehicles. This is the same as this is basically the same bill that was passed last year for members of the fire service. And there are other organizations that have these multi-use decals. And I'm just simply on behalf of the EMS, the Emergency Medical Services community, bringing this forward as an option for them to have these decals. And I included in the language an EMS chief or a fire chief, because even though the fire departments already have this, some ambulance services are run by fire departments and their members are only with the ambulance service. So this does not denote that they are responding to an emergency. This is just a specialty plate with a multi-use decal that they have a choice for. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Prentice. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay.
I'm next.
Senator Birdsell, you're
All right. Thank you, committee. Again, my name's Regina Birdsell, State Senator for District 19, encompassing the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham. And I am presenting Section 2, the removal of abandoned or disabled vehicles. This was a piece of legislation that I brought back. It passed, I believe, unanimously in the Senate, and it got convoluted because of the omnibus bills from last year and COVID. Basically, what this does is it's an agreement between the state police and the towing association. Typically, what had happened in the past, and the state police, when the car needs to be towed and the state police are there, they would randomly call a towing association. What this does is an agreement between the state police and the towing association is it actually has the towing companies on a rolling call list. So it makes it equal for everyone. This was, again, worked on for a good amount of time, almost a year, I think, between the towing association and the state police. And I think you'll be hearing some testimony from both the state police and the towing association about it. So with that, I will end my testimony and take any questions.
No.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that because it's in the omnibus, we won't do the questions now. We'll do them when we recycle through again.
Okay.
So the gavel is back in your hands.
Okay, so part 3, the winter maintenance, and that is, Tricia, you're going to have to help me with this because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
going back
okay.
and forth. Oh,
It's Senator
Senator
Morse.
Morse.
Yep.
Sorry, Senator. Go ahead, Senator Morse.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. I thought I was going to miss finance the way you guys were going on. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I am Senator Chuck Morse. I represent Senate District 22, which includes the towns of Salem, Atkinson, Plastow, and Pelham. I am prime sponsor of Part 3 of Senate Bill 131, which makes a few changes to the salt applicators program. I first got involved with salt as a result of I-93 widening project. As part of the lawsuit regarding the project, the state was required to reduce the amount of salt runoff impacting local waterways. The state has been working to use best practices to reduce salt use, and the current certification program works with private contractors to help reduce their salt usage. Under current law, only private contractors can get this certification. This bill would allow the state to certify municipal programs as well. In the bill itself, sections 2, 4, and 7 make a few technical changes to the salt applicators program, mostly to better define the difference between an individual and a subordinate certificate. While the balance of the bill allows municipalities to have their programs certified by DES. This bill is a win-win. Municipalities will save money through reduced salt usage, and it helps to keep our waterways clean. I know DES is here to answer any technical questions about the bill, but I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Senator Morse. We'll wait till the end. Does anyone have any questions of Senator Morse? I know he has to get back to finance. Seeing none. Thank you, Senator Morse.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
Yes,
I'm
all
sorry.
right. Part 4 is Senator Waters.
Ah, welcome back, Senator Waters.
And he has part 5.
Ah, okay.
Senator Waters, you're muted.
Just sorry, I'm shuffling pages here. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Waters, District 4. This bill is relative to implementing a mandatory OHRV and snowmobile safety certificate program. A little bit of background here. We have been wrestling with issues about OHRVs and snowmobiles as long as I've been on Senate Transportation, and it's a perennial issue in the House because we have really always recognized the extraordinary importance of this recreation to the North Country and to other parts of the state, and have really tried to do everything we can to promote it, including the Ride the Wild and all the laws that we passed to enable vehicles to go on roads as appropriate and to get the services they need. And it's just really a bright spot in a place that needs any economic development help that the legislature can provide. Of course, the other side of that is that there are difficulties that are being encountered. We heard a lot about it a couple of years ago in this committee, and working with the House, thought it would be best to set up a study committee that would look at various issues. And this was Sherman Packard's bill, and those who were on the committee last spring recall that we used Representative Packard, Speaker Packard's bill to become the vehicle for our omnibus with a 10-year plan and other things as well. And so that committee did work, and it has came out with a series of recommendations. And so this one of the things that could be agreed on was that education was important, and to make sure that people had the education they needed about how they can safely operate their machinery. And of course, those of us who just keep an eye on the news see that tragically we're seeing a lot of fatalities, a lot of injuries, and not unexpected, but there they are. And oftentimes the cause of the injury or the death is operator related. And so the thought, well, here education would probably help folks out to make sure they're ready to be out on the trails. That said, it is a kind of a complex bill. It sets in motion not just these certificates, but the administration of them. And then perhaps, most importantly is the instruction here and the availability of instruction. I have had conversation, and I think we'll hear from Director Mason of Fish and Game, that they don't feel that they are able to support this program at this time in terms of the implementation of it. That's tough, but given the times we're in and the demands on conservation officers on that department, I think that's a very important caveat. So I think it'd be good to hear from the director, and I know there are some advocates who are involved in this bill, and I think we ought to hear from them, but I just would like to put it out there as the prime sponsor of this portion that the committee may decide that we shouldn't go forward at this time. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Waters. And I understand you have part 5?
Yes, I do, which I will again flip a lot of.
You've been busy.
I've got it. So this is relative to the eligibility for the issuance of non-driver's picture identification card. This is a request of the Department of Safety, and you shall hear about them. It's pretty simple. What it does is that it says, by crossing out that line on page 27, line 17, that either you have a license, or if you're over 65, either you have a license or you can come get one of these cards, but not both. And that's an important change. Also, you'll see a little bit further down, lines 22, 23, this reference to a gold and granite state discount card, and that program was put in place decades ago and no longer exists. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. And I guess I'm thinking here, geez, I finally hit 65 and now hit 70. I don't get my golden granite state discount card, Well,
Well,
But that's why that's there as well. And also identification for 5 years. I think that's for lots of reasons that's a good idea, rather than have for as long as somebody's a resident of the state. And so on page 28, lines 6 through 8, these are struck because that fund there was connected to that Golden Granite State discount card. And
Okay.
since that program no longer exists, we should get rid of the fund as well. So we'll hear from the department on this, but that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Waters. And we have part 6. That would be Senator Daniels, correct?
Yes. Senator Daniels?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Gary Daniels. I am the state senator for District 11, encompassing the towns of Amherst, Merrimack, Milford, and Wilton. I'm also the prime sponsor of Part 6 of Senate Bill 141 relative to the operation of bicycles at or approaching intersections. This bill adds 2 sections to our bicycle laws in RSA 265:144. First of all, a person operating a bicycle, human-powered vehicle, or an electric-assisted bicycle approaching a stop sign shall slow down and, if required for safety, stop before entering the intersection. After slowing to a reasonable speed or stopping, that person shall yield the right-of-way to any vehicle in the intersection or approaching on another highway so closely as to constitute an immediate hazard during the time the person is moving across or within the intersection or junction of highways, except that a person, after slowing to a reasonable speed and yielding the right of way, if required, may cautiously make a turn or proceed through the intersection without stopping. Secondly, a person operating a bicycle or human-powered vehicle approaching a steady red traffic light shall stop before the intersection and shall yield to all other traffic. Once that person has yielded, he may proceed through the steady red light with caution, provided, however, that a person, after slowing to a reasonable speed and yielding the right of way, if required, may cautiously make a right-hand turn. Left-hand turn onto a one-way highway may be made on a red light after stopping and yielding to other traffic. These are statutes that have been done in other states, done in Idaho in 1988. You've seen similar legislation pass in places like Oregon, Delaware, Arkansas, Colorado. These additions would make it safer for bicyclists at a number of levels. And Madam Chair, I know that there are avid bicyclists who will be speaking to this part of the bill, and I would yield to them to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Daniels. And we are at part 7, which, is me. So again, my name's Regina Birdsell. Do we have to keep saying this as we know? Well, my name's Regina Birdsell. I'm the prime sponsor of Part 7. This is the Safe Boater Education. This was another bill that went through the Senate and was passed last year, but again, because of COVID, got lost in the COVID pandemic. And this was requested by the Department of Safety. And it basically says no person shall operate a motorized vessel with any type of power motor in excess of the 25 horsepower on public waters of the state without first obtaining a certificate of boating safety education. It also takes out on lines 37 through, on line 37, it lines out the date of birth and a few of the the dates. So the Department of Safety, I believe, is here, and they'll go through a little bit of why that's done. But again, this was a request from the Department of Safety from last year, and I'm just bringing it back. So
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
thank you. We are on section 8.
Senator Prentice has introduced that one, so
That's right.
it's 9, and I will bring in Josh Elliott for Senator Carson. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Josh, you're all set.
Thanks, Tricia. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members committee. For the record, Josh Elliott, Deputy Chief of Staff for the State Senate. I am bringing in part 9 for Senator Carson, who is tied up this afternoon. This portion defines a qualified private community and requires a municipality to reimburse or provide such communities and property owners within such communities with services related to roads equivalent to what is provided for properties along public roads, including the removal of snow, ice, and other obstacles from the roads and streets, street lighting charges, collection of leaves and recyclable materials, and collection or disposal of solid waste, repairs and maintenance and replacement of water and sewer infrastructure within qualified private communities. This section of, or I should say, this part of the bill also requires municipalities to repair Class 6 roads. I will note that municipalities currently do not provide any of these services to private entities. With that, I will conclude my testimony, and I will defer any questions to the supporters of the bill.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have gone through all parts of the bill. Tricia, can you bring in those that want to speak on section 1?
Sure. So anybody that would like to speak on section 1 of the bill, part 1 of the bill, which is relative to electric vehicle supply equipment and infrastructure and relative to state motor vehicle fleet management, sponsored by Senator Waters, could you please raise your hand?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, were we going to have questions from members of the committee to the sponsor before we went on to the public testimony?
That's a good idea. Any questions of the committee to Senator Waters? Seeing
That was easy.
Okay, Trish, go for it.
I'm going to bring in Rebecca Oller. Ms. Oller, you should be able to speak. You need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Rebecca Oller. I'm with the Department of Environmental Services Air Resources Division. I'm the administrator of our Technical Services Bureau, where, among other things, we handle air pollution issues related to the transportation sector. I am here primarily to support the findings of the bill, which were, as Senator Waters noted, came directly out of the work of the Electric Vehicle Charging Station Infrastructure Commission. There was an extremely robust process. We heard from a lot of experts, and I think that our final report outlines all of the findings in this bill. And as a collective group, we found this to be true. Relative to the policy aspects of this, that is the purview of the legislature. So I really am here to answer questions should anybody have any. And I will just, that Senator had made one comment about, excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat. I made one comment about how we are now finding through the state vehicle bid that actually some of the lowest cost vehicles are indeed electric vehicles. And it's on our most recent bid. And of course, I've got other, I'm trying to get back to it now. In the most recent 2021 model year vehicle index, in past years, it's just shown that the purchase price of the vehicle and not tried to do any calculation of the total cost of ownership. As some of you may be aware, electric vehicles have a lower operational cost because there's no fuel, there's no oil changes, there's no coolant. Basically lots of moving parts that no longer exist. and also a lot less wear and tear on the brakes because the motor itself brakes the vehicle. So looking at the vehicle list for this year, if you look at the sort of the most typical vehicle, which is the 4-door, 5-passenger sedan, the lowest, the vehicle that is the lowest cost to operate over the lifetime of the vehicle is the Chevrolet Bolt, which is a all battery electric vehicle. And it came in about, well, I guess probably only about $500 less than the closest, but several $1,000s less than most of the other vehicles within that category. As also noted by the senator, pretty much every single major auto manufacturer has announced that they are either introducing EVs in an increasing way or are going to stop making internal combustion vehicles in the next 10 to 15 years. So a very significant transition towards this market. And I think that this bill provides a good pathway for New Hampshire to get in line with where the market itself is going. And with that, I will take any questions if you have any.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have just a few, but if anybody else wants to jump in, I'd be happy to give the floor if you see anybody else's hand or they indicate they'd like to ask some questions.
Okay.
And I also thought that maybe Tricia could send to the committee members that report. I think I sent it, back in the fall, but that wouldn't have hit the new members. So anyways, perhaps we could do that. Becky, let me start by saying that I want to thank you publicly for your extraordinary work over many years for the department and for helping, helping on the commission and helping provide the kind of information that we needed to the commission and also that we need as policymakers. I have questions in a couple of areas. I wonder if we might talk about the parts of the bills that are centered around the disbursement of the VW funds and some of the kinds of assumptions and directions that are made there about how we get that system going. So I wondered if you might offer some thoughts about how that's going to go forward.
So, as you know, the Office of Strategic Initiatives is the lead agency for the Volkswagen settlement funds. But DES has worked very closely with them, including helping to develop the action plan for the use of those funds. Under the terms of the Volkswagen Trust, up to 15% of a state's funds, and New Hampshire got ballpark $31 million. So up to 15% of those funds may be used for the installation of the electric vehicle supply equipment, so the EV charging infrastructure. Additional funds may also be used for the remainder of the funds are to be used to replace diesel vehicles and equipment. The trust allows for the replacement with new diesel vehicles or equipment, or states may have the option of replacing diesel vehicles with cleaner vehicles. As Senator noted, we did go out for an electric school bus request for proposals early on when at the beginning of getting the trust. We did not get any qualified applicants. We've been having conversations with that sector, and we'll be going back out for a bid. That is still a priority in the state's beneficiary mitigation plan. And also a priority is to get the funding out for the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. I do feel somewhat of like a broken record in saying that it is coming. The going out for requests for proposals along these lines is far, far different than anything that the state has done. And it's extremely complex. There's a lot of moving parts. We continue to work on this. We continue to jump over hurdles as they get thrown in front of us. And we will be getting a request for proposals for the fast charging out as soon as is humanly possible. And I hope that that is indeed very soon, although I will as the senator knows, we've been saying that for a while now. But that is still the primary focus of the VW Trust right now, and we continue to work with OSI to make that happen.
Well, thank you, Becky. And on this, though, I mean, is it fair to say that the bill is essentially trying to put some tools in the toolbox here so that this VW money can get spent, and it gets spent in a good way for New Hampshire?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And appreciate the guidance from the bill. I think it, for the most part, reiterates what our beneficiary mitigation plan had intended, was that we should be prioritizing both electric vehicle charging infrastructure and incentivizing public sector electric vehicles. And so that's, in that regard, yes, I think that this is very much in line with where we are heading, but it's always useful to have policy to back us up.
If I may, Madam Chair, ask another one.
Absolutely. Follow up.
Thank you. There's lots and lots of parts of this bill, and I don't want to go through it all again. But I did want to circle around to the state fleet aspect of it, because you worked on the fiscal note.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And like last time, it's a monster. and for good reason, because there's a lot to think about. What are vehicles going to cost in 20 years, and how do we get this in the charging stations for the state agencies going to use them? And so it's going to obviously produce some big numbers. And a couple of big unknowns here is that the bill says feasible as feasible, so we don't really know. And then also, one way or another, it seems like we're going to be seeing a big shot of federal money for charging infrastructure, but we don't know, right? We don't know. So I just wanted to kind of focus in a little bit. It implies a certain dollar figure on replacing the whole fleet, and the point there, though, isn't it, that we're going to be replacing the fleet over time anyways, right?
Yes, I would assume so. I will say that the fleet is the purview of the Department of Administrative Services, but yes, vehicles wear out, they get replaced.
And from what you're telling us, that given the pricing trends and the cost of operation trends, that it's likely that this program would actually mean we'd be spending less than if we just replaced the fleet with existing conventional vehicles?
Absolutely, on the light duty vehicle side of things. I don't have the crystal ball as to how quickly the market is going to move on the medium and heavy duty side, but it's really all comes down to the battery technology, and the battery technology and the cost of EV batteries is dropping like a rock. I mean, it's already lower. We're lower today than where it was projected 2 years ago to be 2 years in the future now. I mean, so and the market estimates that as soon as we get battery technology below $100 per kilowatt hour of storage capacity, then pretty much every single electric vehicle on the market is going to be at par or lower cost than its conventional counterpart. We are currently in the $120 to $130 per kilowatt hour range, which is a huge drop even from a year ago. So again, I expect that the timeline will exceed the past projections as to when we get there.
Yeah, and a lot of this being driven by ramping of manufacture up in this country under the Buy American program, but also what's being done in China. And I did see a report. I have seen recent reports from Lion and from Mac about what they're doing, and then they expect to have a good cost on their platforms. But there is this thing called the learning, where when you double output, the percentage savings in costs, and the learning for electric vehicles is that every time you double the numbers, that the 17% reduction in costs, so that we've been more than doubling the numbers over the last few years. So it does seem, as you say, pretty likely that $100 threshold is going to be in the rearview mirror pretty soon. So I guess my final question is that, that looking at that this bill is not asking us to spend that money that's in the fiscal note. It's just saying anticipating, and aren't we asking the fleet folks and the departments under this bill to start planning for what their regular capital budget requests for vehicles will be in light of this eventual transmission? So is that a good way to look at it?
That is certainly how I read it, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Becky, and thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging my little colloquy here.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Senator Waters. Tricia?
Yes, so next we have Elizabeth Balecki.
Is this for section 1?
Yes, this is still
Okay.
for section 1.
Good afternoon,
Hello,
Madam Chair.
Director.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Good, thank you. Members of the committee, for the record, my name is Elizabeth Balecki, Director of Motor Vehicles. We're taking a neutral position on it, but I do understand that we did provide you with a sizable fiscal note on it. So I just want to make sure that I make myself available for any questions that the committee might have.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Waters?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Elizabeth, so much for all the work at the division. Tough times, and I bet a lot of you have been working on COVID-related things too. But here we are on the fiscal note. So I know you don't like to offer your opinion on policy things, but I'm very sensitive to the costs involved here, and my feeling is that a big cost to get this implemented, but that if we see thousands and thousands of vehicles come online over the next few years, that eventually the revenues will help us out. But I just what I'm trying to ask with this is that if this seems too much for the department to take on right now, given the situation, that it maybe is not the most opportune time to try to do this. Would that be something you might agree with?
Not necessarily, and thank you for the question. I think the reason why our fiscal note is the way it is because we're looking to implement it or automate the process. Part of the reason why it would take a little bit of more effort on the IT side is currently we don't decode the VIN in a way that it identifies the fuel type of the vehicle. And in order to do this right, we would implement a much more robust VIN decoder where we could do that. So the system could automatically detect whether the vehicle is electric or plug-in hybrid and actually assess that the additional registration fee to it. So to your point, with the additional cost, we're looking to do it right so that it minimizes the impact or the manual processing on the division.
And if I may follow up, Madam Chair. And in that regard too, getting that automation, I mean, we've, Norm Major's bills keep, coming at us, right? And I mean, I'm glad everybody's seated, but I don't know if you saw that yesterday, the American Petroleum Institute. The American Petroleum Institute is coming out in favor of a carbon tax. So, a lot is changing, and certainly that's what Norm Major's bill essentially is about. Is that so? Would it help you down the road to have this automation so that with anticipated, things like vehicle miles traveled or whatever, that you would then have the technology available to implement whatever major changes might be made about the way we tax or put fees on automobiles to support our highways?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Not necessarily.
Okay.
The cost associated with this bill really focuses on that additional charge per vehicle based on the fuel type. With Representative Major's bill, if I recall correctly from the last session, it really focused on average miles per gallon. So we would be looking for other subscriptions or pieces of information that we would have to pull into our system based on which we would then assess the fees. So it's a little bit different. I think apples and oranges, but this cost is driven based on assessing a fuel type of the vehicle and then adding that additional fee for the hybrid and electric vehicles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one more hand raised for part one. Last call. If anybody would like to speak to part one, please raise your hand now. Bringing in Madeline Minot. Ms. Minot.
Thank you, members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak on this part one of Senate Bill 131. I'm Madeline Minot, the Executive Director of Clean Energy New Hampshire. In addition to renewable energy and energy efficiency, we also work on clean transportation by coordinating Drive Electric New Hampshire. We generally support the bill. I have 4 small items, though, that I did want to bring up. In section 3 of the findings, it defines Make Ready as EDC owned or funded behind the meter enabling infrastructure. I believe that should be the opposite. Generally, Make Ready investments are considered front of the meter or on the utilities side of the meter. And I'm happy to follow up with these suggestions in writing as well. My second recommendation would be that we're very supportive of the level 2 charging rebate, and do agree that it may be more effectively implemented by a non-governmental entity. We would ideally like to see a deadline or timeline for the implementation of that program, because it's already taken a very long time to get here. In section 4, regarding Make Ready investments by utilities, I think it may be appropriate to include review and approval standards for the inclusion of Make Ready investments to be recovered in the system benefits charge. I just want to make sure that, like all other utility investments that are recovered from their customers, that, you know, those are prudent investments and in the benefit of their customers. And then lastly, in the last section regarding EV charging rate design, we disagree with section 6 that says that demand charges are appropriate for fast charging at this time. We actually think that it's a very significant disincentive to building out the DC fast charging network, the fact that we have significant demand charges in our tariffs that would be applied to those chargers. So that's what I have, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Madeline, that if you could give us that in writing, that would be great, because you were moving a little faster than I could.
Absolutely. I've been used to these only having 2 or 3 minutes to talk to committees, so I'm really fast. I will absolutely follow up with these details in an email later this afternoon.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, we have no other hands raised for part one.
Okay. Part 2.
Part 2 is your bill. If anybody would like to raise their hand now in preparation, if they would like to have testimony or speak on part 2, which is relative to removal of abandoned or disabled vehicles by towing. And if you are on the phone, you can do that by pressing *9.
Tricia, could we have
Captain?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you, Captain.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members. My name is Mike Comerford. I'm a captain with the New Hampshire State Police. Been with the State Police for approximately 23 years now. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the NHSP and in support of SB 131, particularly as it pertains to Part 2. The State Police has been working extensively with the New Hampshire Tow Association and its president, Ralph Cresta, for a better part of 2 to 3 years now on trying to solidify this agreement, and we are happy to be able to get to this point today. This legislation is extremely important to us because it would allow the state police to establish a tow rotation that we believe meets the needs of the public, the tow companies themselves, and the New Hampshire Tow Association, as well as our own needs. It's one that we believe is fair and equitable for all involved. While it does allow us, well, basically what it really does is it really allows us to develop a tow list. It allows us to identify how the tow list would be used. It allows us to list the requirements for the tow companies on what it takes to be on the list, how to apply if they so choose. And it also spells out the procedures to be removed from the list if they fail to adhere to the requirements. What we're really trying to do here is to develop an adequate and legitimate tow list and rotation so that when we request a tow truck for our purposes or the public's, that the tow truck that responds, and for that matter, the driver as well, is a company that has been vetted, is reputable, is reliable, and one that has the proper equipment so that all can have confidence in knowing that their vehicle, and in some cases, loved ones, will be handled with care by the company that has been properly vetted through our process. What this does not do is it does not grant us any additional authority beyond what currently exists to tow any vehicles. It does not do that at all. Again, we feel that this is very important to our needs as well as the New Hampshire Tow Association's needs, and we are extremely proud to be able to support this today. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Captain. Any questions? Senator Sherman?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Captain. Just a quick, possibly stupid question, but if you happen to have a tow service, whether it's through your manufacturer or through AAA, would this have any impact on your choice of using your own available tow service?
Thank you, Senator, for your question. That's a great question. No, it does not. So you, for instance, if you're broken down on the Interstate 93 in Concord and a trooper responds to assist you, that trooper would ask you if you have your own preference on who you would like to call. If you do have a preference, you would be allowed to make that call, or we could make that call for you. This tow rotation are for those instances where somebody doesn't necessarily have a particular tow company in mind.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Captain. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well.
Tricia?
Okay, next we have Michael Lampert.
Okay.
Mr. Lampert?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. I'm a member of the Towing Association. I own a New England Truck Center and John's Wrecker Service here in Concord. And I mean, this is something that we've been working on for the better part of 10 years on and off. It's definitely going to be a benefit to the residents and the visitors of the state of New Hampshire. It will raise the professional standards in our industry. And we are definitely in support of this.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Michael, for being here. And one thing that I'm really impressed with Senator Birdsell's bill about here is it really seems to me this brings some fairness to this process. And is that fair to say?
It does. It levels the playing field. It makes sure. Really, the way it's been is you don't know who you're getting, and now there will be a vetted process. So there'll be a level of comfort. If your daughter or your wife's out there, something happens at 10:30 at night, you want to know that they're safe. And this brings out that level of professionalism to the industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Senator Sherman.
You're muted.
Just one quick question. Is there any risk under this that a company could be inappropriately, I guess this is a nefarious question, be inappropriately favored or disfavored? Suppose in the very unlikely event that there is a disagreement between the keeper of the list and the people who are on the list, or a certain tow truck. Are you protected against, trying to think of the best way to say this, being seen in an unfavorable light, not because of quality or otherwise, but almost a political not in our sense, but in every industry has politics. I'm in the healthcare industry. we have just enormous politics. Senator Waters can talk about university academic politics, and I'm sure there's politics in your industry as well. Is there a protection for the individual tow truck company from having that become the reason why they're favored or disfavored on this list?
I believe so. I don't think there's a way to be favored or disfavored. It's pretty clear cut, the way it's written, the standards of what the state police would like to see. And you're either on or you're off. And I mean, there's a fair rotation. It's very clear if you don't meet expectations, what happens. And there is a hearing process if you disagree with it. So I think it's very fair.
So you feel that your industry is protected, individuals within your industry are protected from any favoritism, I guess is the word I would think of.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Senator Sherman, I think that was the whole process to get that piece out of it. And that's why they worked so hard to get it equal. Any other questions from the committee for Michael Lambert? Seeing none. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Tricia?
I have Ralph Crusta.
Welcome, Ralph.
Oh, Mr. Crusta, could you unmute yourself?
How about now?
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you. I'm the president of the New Hampshire Towing Association. The New Hampshire Towing Association is over 100 members strong. And not to repeat anything that Captain Comerford or Mr. Lampert has said, New Hampshire Towing Association is for this Bill 131. It's going to make us more professional. I think there's a lot of stuff that's been already said. This already went through last year. I think all of you, most of you was on that same committee. And we're kind of doing a repeat because of COVID. Other than that, I don't have much more to add to this because, you know, just Captain Comerford and Mike Lambert basically said what they had to say. You know, if there's any questions, let me know of the association.
Great. Thank you, Ralph. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
And if there are any other individuals who'd like to speak on part 2, please raise your hand now. I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Great. Okay, so we move on to part 3.
All right, if you'd like to speak on part 3, please raise your hand now.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, I have Cordell Johnston.
Sure.
And I also have Ted Deers from the New Hampshire DES. Who would you like to hear first, Madam Chair?
DES.
Mr. Deers?
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you this afternoon. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for allowing this bill to move forward into hearings. I wanted to thank Senator Morse for his excellent introduction. He hit really all the high points. I will not take much of your time, but simply to say that there's a couple reasons why this is moving forward in terms of the municipal salt section of it. As Senator Morse mentioned, we do not have the statutory authority to do certifications for municipalities. And what we heard from the communities is that there was interest in having that ability for a number of reasons. Certainly one of which is cost savings. That is showing their communities that they're doing everything they can to control costs. There's public pressure that they often have to deal with. Many communities are getting pressure from lake associations and others. There's regulatory issues. The MS4 permit, which affects 44 communities in our state, it has provisions for this certification to help them meet some of those permit requirements. And finally, what we hear is just sort of this esprit de corps, this idea that getting everybody trained, everybody headed towards a common goal of reducing salt helps to build that.
Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Sorry, Mr. Deers.
You know what? There's a lot of people who've wished they had that button for me over the years.
I'm sorry.
Many in present company probably included in that. So I'm not sure at what point I disappeared, but
esprit de corps.
Yeah, great. That was it. That's all I said. And that, winter maintenance is a tough sport, and getting all the folks moving the same direction around a common goal is often helpful. So the bill includes the provisions to create a municipal salt certification. It's voluntary. That's the other one piece that I wanted to add on to Senator Morse's explanation, is that all of this is voluntary. Nobody has to do this. So this is really for those communities that want to take advantage of it. The way we anticipate this moving forward is that we'll develop some rules. Those rules will describe the various levels of certification. We're kind of thinking about a bronze, silver, gold approach. And again, trying to move the ball forward on salt reduction. I'm sure many of you have heard the issues. We have statewide issues with water quality, with destruction of bridges and infrastructure, with killing plants. Merrimack Village District is about to have to turn a well off because of chlorides. This is a big issue, and it's getting worse before it's getting better. So everything we can do to try to raise the profile of salt reduction is important while protecting public health and safety, which is paramount to the way we do our training. So I will end there and see if there's any questions about the bill.
Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Ted. This is important. It's good to hear from you that this meets your sense of where we ought to be, because we've got to protect the environment. And clearly, there's a lot of frustration around Route 93 expansion, and I really think this is a very positive bill. I would like to call your attention to one part on page 22. At the very bottom of the page.
Yep.
507B2B. And I think this is awfully important. The point that's made in the bold at the bottom there, municipal winter maintenance program certified under RSA 49C2A shall be presumed to meet the standards herein for all public roads, parking areas, and walkways in the absence of proof to the contrary. This seems to me is really the heart of the matter. And do you have any further comment on that?
Thank you very much for asking that question, Senator.
Go
ahead. Sorry, Senator.
What, Senator, what part were you talking about?
Page
what page?
22.
Oh, 22.
Yeah, sorry, page 22. And if you go all the way to the bottom, the bold.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
All right. Thanks.
So thank you very much. When we first started on this endeavor to reduce salt, we heard from the private contractors a lot that they were very worried about slip and fall cases. And that's why we have the provisions that are included in the original bills regarding limited liability relief for those people who get certified, because what they didn't want to have happen was to reduce their salt, protect public safety, but then get sued for not using all the salt that's humanly possible to put down on a road. And that's, was really important. And it's been an important characteristic of the program. And in fact, there's some different little bits and pieces in this bill which help to make that provision even stronger. Over time, we've learned a little bit about it. What we wanted to make sure we did as we introduced the municipal side was that we didn't create a situation in which their sovereign immunity was somehow compromised. And so that's what that language is attempting to do, is to make sure that by doing the right thing, they don't open themselves up to additional lawsuits. And so that's, this has been important, and a number of municipalities have looked through this. I encourage others who may be listening to get their town councils to make sure that, they've looked at this and that everybody's on the same page. So far, this has been out for a couple of years now. This is the second session because it got lost in the shuffle last year. A lot of people have seen this and have had the opportunities to look through it. I'll be interested to hear what Cordell says from the Municipal Association perspective.
And fair enough to say that that provision provides a heck of an incentive for people to get themselves, their town certified, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's not meant to actually, change the current sovereign immunity that communities to enjoy. I mean, right now, as long as you're not negligent, you really can't be sued for slip and fall, cases. You'd have to prove negligence. And what we didn't want to do was somehow compromise that. That's the real reason for that statement.
Yeah, gotcha.
I'm not sure that it actually, changes or improves or increases any of that. It's just meant to make sure that we don't mess it up by people going through this process.
Thank you.
Senator Sherman.
Just actually a grammar question.
Oh, excellent.
Page, well, I wouldn't have picked this up if you hadn't pointed it out, but page 23, line 6, it's actually more of a possible typo than a grammar. Should that be, and this is something I think the committee can fix, commercial applicator or his, or should it be
her? Yeah, there's a word missing.
Word missing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Madam Chair, I will be happy to be employed as chief grammatician or whatever it's called.
Grammarian?
Grammarian, there we go. See, I just didn't
Grammarian.
My father was an English teacher, and in fact, he used to have a CB radio back in the day, and
wow.
his handle was Grammar Rammer.
I like
Well,
it.
I was a classics major, so your father and I would have gotten along great.
All right. Any other questions? We will take care of that grammatical error.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you considering this bill.
Not a problem.
Okay, now I'm going to remove you for real. Okay, and
Cordell?
yes, Cordell. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cordell Johnston from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I hate to disappoint Ted because he said he would be interested in hearing what I have to say. And all I was going to say is we support Part 3. And I think Senator Morse and Ted Deers did an excellent job of explaining it. And in the interest of everyone's time, I'm not going to say anything more unless you really want me to.
Okay, Cordell. Any questions for Cordell? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to raise their hand to speak on Part 3 of Senate Bill 131? Please do so now. And again, if you're on the phone, you can do that by dialing *9 or pressing *9. I'm giving away my age. Dialing, we don't dial. Okay, Madam Chair, there are no other hands.
All right, let's move on to Part 4.
Okay.
And that would be Senator Waters. Anyone to speak on Part 4?
So if anybody would like to speak on Part 4, please raise your hand now. Okay, we have Diane Richardson. Diane, you're all set?
Do you have me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Diane Richardson. I live in Springfield, New Hampshire, and I deal a lot with Fish and Game and their certification processes. I'm a licensed leash tracking dog handler, not that that has anything to do with this part. And I do have a concern about one line in the bill, and it repeats itself twice, once for OHRV and once for snowmobile. It's on page 24, it's line 28 to 29, and on page 25, it's line 20 to 21, where it says no person shall operate an OHRV on land not owned or leased by such a person or such person's parent, grandparent, or guardian, unless blah, 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 blah. A good point, given that New Hampshire's has a lot of rural agriculture employees who often use OHRVs daily in their job, might be to add or employee on employer's property. And the only reason I say that is my husband he works on a big cattle farm, and he at one point was forklift certified. And to get forklift certified, the certification place came to the warehouse he worked at and certified several guys at the same time at their place of work. Having dealt with Fish and Game, I know that they're very short-staffed and it's really difficult to get into a certification. So if you get a job on a farm where you're going to have to be hauling hay and grain and whatever with an ATV on a daily basis all day long, you're not going to get into the training program and get your certificate in time to get that job. That's really my only point.
Thank you, Diane. That's a good catch. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you very much.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak to Part 4 of Senate Bill 131? Okay, we have Jason Stock. Jason?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can, Jason.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, good afternoon. I wasn't really planning to speak, but Diane's comment really kind of triggered something in my mind. Is it's an employer's property, or I may be working on behalf of the landowner. A good example is if I'm a forester and I'm working on a client's property, I may not necessarily be employed by them, so I would say if it's, an employee or an agent of the landowner, and that way you would cover a situation where I'm on the property on their behalf as a consultant, or, as in the case of Diane's example, which was a good one, I'm directly on that individual's payroll as an employee. But I would add that we have many instances in the forestry community where OHRVs are a very important tool to go out and cruise timber and access property, and we would want to make sure that those, you're not really recreating with it. It's just a work tool, and you're using it on the property. And so I would add to what Diane said, and just as an individual, also and as the agent of the landowner. Other than that, really the only other comment, our policy committee reviewed this. We thought this was a good idea. I understand, I listened to the introduction, there may be some funding issues. The only other comment that was made by our policy committee was we talk about the safety and repair and equipment, but also mention, as part of this training program, I don't know if this necessarily needs to be incorporated into the statute, but making sure that these individuals that are going to operate these are aware of the rules as it pertains to using trails that cross private lands, and kind of, the trespass laws as they relate to crossing a piece of private land. That may be, like I said, I don't know if it rises to the level here. You talk about it crossing highways, but it might be nice to tuck in there that you're not only talking about operation on highway crossings and along approved highways, but also trails crossing private property. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate your time this afternoon.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, I have Kevin Jordan with his hand raised.
Okay, Kevin, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I wanted to not sit silent and leave Senator Waters hanging because I put him in kind of a difficult position with this bill. So I'm the colonel at New Hampshire Fish and Game Law Enforcement. And I kind of wanted to address this whole thing as quickly as I can, so I don't tie you up, because it is a big bill with lots of folks to speak. Jason's concerns, if and when we move forward with this class plan, certainly part of that package would be, yes, Jason, to go over those rules and operational procedures so that every operator, that would be required as part of the certification, so that every operator was at least familiar with what they can and cannot do. We started this at the beginning of the year. I think COVID played a role in this. We had a lot of folks that went outside because it was the only game in town. It was safe to do so. And so we saw a huge influx of people fishing, hunting, and I'm assuming that some of this has spilled over into the OHRV world. As a result of that, we have seen a number of accidents caused by, and we started looking at those, finding that in the old days, alcohol and speed were really the major factors, but we discovered this year that inexperience was taking on a new role, and it was coming forward in a very fast manner. So our rental agencies have boomed across the state, especially in the North Country, and they're renting very fast machines, and we're putting people on them that have never ridden machines, and we felt that this was a problem. So we are struggling as an agency a bit, trying to decide how best to do this. At first, we thought having a mandatory class was would be part of the solution, because everything else that you operate in the state of New Hampshire, you must take a class and demonstrate your ability. So we thought it made sense to do it here. There are a lot of factors we didn't consider, and some of those would be how this could or would affect tourism, because that's important to us too. We don't want to do anything to stop this great momentum that they've got in some areas of the state. We feel it has an important economic value. We're trying to come up with a plan to do it fairly. And we kind of took a step back and decided that maybe we have to do a little better planning. So we asked Senator Waters to stall bringing this forward at this time, so that we could revisit some of these things and maybe get it a little better and tighter before we move forward. I would expect you to see something like this coming in the future, especially if these trends continue, because I don't think I'm comfortable sustaining them. We want people to come up here and rent machines and have a great time and go home safely on Sunday night. And we're working hard to come up with a plan to do that in conjunction with the governor's office as well, so that we don't step on tourism or have any negative effects from it. So that's why we're where we are. And I apologize to Senator Waters for putting him in this position. He was a very willing participant. He always has been for my agency. We really appreciate his support. And we felt bad pulling back, but we just felt, after talking with numerous groups, including our commission, the governor's office, that there was some factors here we need to think about before we go forward. So that's where we are.
Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Colonel, thanks so much. And, as I always say when I see you even virtually, thank you for all that you're doing. And, it's a big job, and it's increased for you all. And, the staffing is always an issue, but, thanks for all you're doing. And so I just wanted to follow up on what you were saying, that, I agree with you. I think that this is a helpful approach, but how to do it, we better get it right. And so my question is, it's a little uncertain and about what we're going to do about pieces of these omnibuses, whether or not the Senate president may consider waiving rules so that something come back next year that was in an omnibus. But we're in complicated times on this. But one thing I thought about was, would it be helpful to the department if we were to replace this section with a very bare bones request to the department to study and to come back with a proposal for legislation? Or are you just going to do that anyways?
We're actually, thank you, Senator, for both of those ideas in the question. But yes, you don't have to worry. I can assure you that I'm not going to tolerate 7, 8, 10 accidents every weekend without finding some way to slow that trend down. I will say, as you said when you introduced the bill, this section of it, that anyone who watches the news sees some of the accidents. And the only thing I will say to that, and I get those all weekend long, I'm on the phone with the officers as they're handling these at various locations. The only thing I would ask you to consider, and I lose sight of it sometimes, is to go out to Interstate 93 on Friday night and watch that truck going north with those machines behind those trucks and trailers and cars, and knowing that those are all folks going up there to ride, or returning on Sunday, and then remembering that over the weekend we had, well, I don't want anyone to think that I don't consider 5 accidents over a weekend a small deal, but when you compare it to the number of people out there, it's not mayhem, certainly. One is too many. I don't want anyone to get injured. We don't want accidents, so we're going to try to do anything we can in the beginning to head that off, as we did in the snow machine world a number of years ago. But you have to kind of keep in mind there are a lot of people doing it, and so these aren't huge numbers, but they're numbers that are concerning, and especially when I see a trend of the same thing reoccurring, that's troublesome. So I can assure you, as long as I'm the colonel, we're gonna look at this. We're looking at it hard now, and I have planned. You will see me again, sir, with a better version, I think, and maybe more of these questions answered before we move forward. I'm just concerned about doing it too fast and making a mistake.
Well, let me just follow up on that then, Colonel, because I think kind of at the heart of my question is, this is, procedurally, but if we act on this bill by pulling this section, it may mean that we cannot bring a bill in on it next January. So the question is whether that's okay, or whether you really want to try to get something in, into the legislative hopper for next January, or really it is going to take you until the 2023 session.
Let me just put in there, we're not going to exec this today.
No.
But if we decide, and that'll give me some time to talk to Senator Morse to make sure, because if we can't bring it back, then what we will do is put a commission in there to study, or require them to do a study. So at least there's a piece in there that would allow us to do a bill next year or next session.
We'd be open to that. That'd be a great idea.
Okay, Senator Sherman?
Yeah, just a comment and then a question of the Colonel. Comment is, my understanding is that if a bill is not voted on by the whole Senate, it does not become ineligible for the next session.
But this will be voted on. This will be voted on.
Well, you could amend, maybe this is better for exec session, but you could amend this part of it out of the bill.
Right.
And then it has never gone to the full Senate. So anyway, you can find out. But the question I had for the Colonel is, when we talk about all this down here on the Seacoast, the equivalent is, of course, the boater safety certificate. And using that as a model, does that help at all in terms of how you would move forward with the structure and the certification?
Yes, we actually looked at that, because that's a great example of what we're trying to do here. There is a little difference in that a lot of the boater safety part of it is classroom only. I don't know that I'm comfortable with just classroom only when we're talking about, people who are grabbing throttles thinking they're brakes, because they're just that unfamiliar. So we haven't really made up the initial thought was to put something online and make it as easy and as inexpensive as we can possibly make it, while hitting all the targets for the level of education we want to provide. I just don't know if we're going to be able to do that without some sort of a field exercise where people get a chance to operate some of these pieces of equipment prior to going out on a trail. So those are some of the debates we're having internally and some of the things that we're considering. But yes, we are looking at the boating part of it. We feel that's a great example for us to get an idea of how to do this.
A quick follow-up, Madam Chair.
Follow-up.
And I know you're aware of this, but other states, I believe like Utah, for example, have a burgeoning four-wheel off-road activity, and they've had it for years. Do they have similar programs? Are there any national certification programs that might be qualifying for something like this?
Well, we looked in the New England states because our concern was we didn't want to create a situation where New Hampshire requirements were so difficult that we push people to go to Vermont or to Maine.
Right, good point.
Yeah, and so that was one of the things that we considered in the beginning. And in New England, we found very similar legislation to ours, where if you're an individual without a driver's license, a youngster, you would be required to take it, but there's no requirement for an adult operator. And our school of thought has always been, well, if they're driving a car and they can drive a car, we should be letting them drive a snow machine. But I'm ready to make the argument that you can't drive a motorcycle. You have to test that, improve your abilities. You can't drive a truck today. There's a test and a demonstration, or at least some opportunity to drive anything that has a motor. Basically, there's some sort of safety requirement or safety class that's required. And I think we're at a point where we need to discuss this about OHRVs, because we've got them on the roads now and they're reaching highway speeds and beyond in some cases. So and the accidents are showing me that people aren't that familiar. So something to think about, but I want to move slowly, make sure that we consider all of these things so that we don't want to do anything to sabotage the success we've enjoyed with this so far, because it is help in the North Country.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Ooh,
Sorry.
that was fast.
With that button there. Okay, there are no other hands for this part. So the next part would be part 5, which is Senator Waters as well. If there is anybody that would like to speak to part 5, could you please raise your hand? If you are on the phone, that's press star 9. Okay, I have one hand. Susan DeRoy. You're all set to speak, Susan?
Welcome, Susan. Hello.
Susan, you just need to unmute. There you go.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Susan.
Hi, David. Susan DeRoy. Remember me from Dover Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the private roads because we have about 20 people that actually live on a private road in New Durham, New Hampshire.
I'm sorry, Mr. Roy.
We're not on that section yet. We're on section 5, which is the
relative to eligibility for the issuance of a non-driver's picture identification card.
I'll come back in afterwards. Thank you.
Sorry, we're just trying to go in consecutive order.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, is there anybody that would like to speak on part 5, which is relative to eligibility for the issuance of a non-driver's picture identification card? Please raise your hand. Okay, we have 2 hands raised. Jeff, you may unmute. There you go.
Welcome, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jeff Oberdank, and I'm here to represent the Division of Motor Vehicles, excuse me, on this bill today. And just to put it into simple terms, we requested this bill as part of our joining the state-to-state program with AMVA. And this really goes down to one person living in one state with one credential. And that's really the entire intent of the program. And so narrowing it down so that you can only have one credential really helps us out in managing the program going forward. And having said that, I'll conclude my testimony and take any questions you may have.
Jeff, this is Senator Bertza. Can you just say that again? It's one credential from one state?
It's one person living in one state with one credential.
Okay. Great. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, is anybody else would like to speak on this section? This is part 5 of SB 131. I do not have any other hands, Senator Bertzel.
Great.
Okay, so we'll move on to section 6, which is the operation of bicycles at or approaching intersections.
If there's anybody attending that would like to speak on this section, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. Carolyn, you are all set to speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Carolyn.
We'll start by just kind of giving you the pertinent background. I tend to ride about 1,000 miles on my bicycle a year. Most of mine is touring, but my husband, before COVID, used to do about 6,000 miles. He would commute back and forth from Milford to Nashua. So when we were out bicycling out west, we came across what's known as the Idaho Stop Law. It's something that you can easily Google. It's all over the internet in some ways. It did become law in 1982. Since then, there are 4 other states and some municipalities in some states like Colorado, where the Colorado doesn't have the law, they enable the municipalities to make the law for themselves. They actually have a version of the Idaho Stop Law. There are other states that have versions known as the Dead Red laws. I'm not sure why they call them Dead Red. But again, what they're all trying to do is address the issue of bicyclists in intersections. I thought, I put this on just as far as because I'm a bicyclist. I asked this to be introduced because I'm trying to make it safer. And I felt like the Idaho Stop Law would be an apt one for our state. There are many reasons you might look at this. It would encourage bicycling both for pleasure and commuting. The studies have shown that it reduces confusion at intersections, as well as fewer collisions and bicycle accidents. It reduces exposure to air pollution when you're sitting there at the stoplight as a bicyclist. You don't have to do that, breathe in that. I also saw a note that said it reduces overuse injury. I myself don't have that problem, but sort of like carpal tunnel, using certain motions, I guess, is a repetitive injury. And it would provide no extra cost to towns or municipalities, and possibly less if you have courts and police time involved as well. The reasons you might not, or you might oppose it, would be that some people believe that bicycles should have the same rules as cars, and there are some bike advocacy groups that have different priorities. They prefer either to not take a stance, or their preference is more on just other things than what I am perceiving as something that would be helpful to me. I'm going to address the statement that the priorities are different than mine from the bike advocacy groups. My feeling is that if there's something that makes me a better, more defensive driver and lets me take the lead in safety, I would like to have that ability. And I will go over the ones that I mentioned for the law or the bill in a few minutes. The other thing that I'd like to address, as far as the bicycles should have the same rules as cars, I think it's an interesting argument. When teaching rules of roads for bicycles, I've heard, oh, well, the rules are different, so it's going to be confusing, especially for children. I'm not sure that children are driving cars yet, but I do think that rules that I see that a lot with people who are not as, I guess, well versed in bicycling. They do think that the bicycle should have the same rules, and drivers often expect that to be the case. So yes, it is true that riding your bicycle drunk can result in the taking. So that is a rule that is the same. It is also true that you are not allowed to drive on sidewalks. Municipalities and places that have sidewalks at the town level get to decide whether it's okay and where it's okay for bicycles to drive on sidewalks. So there are some rules that are definitely the same, but there are definitely some that are not. For example, a bicycle is not allowed on the interstate in New Hampshire. They are in other states because that's the only way to get across the state, like South Dakota. But it's not allowed in New Hampshire. So there's already an exception. It's also acceptable that bicycles are allowed to park places that cars cannot. I think somebody parking in front of somebody's door would be a little bit unwieldy. So while bicycles are a form of transportation, just like cars or walking or ATVs or horses, etc., they really kind of fall into three different law communities: the road, bike lanes, if there are any, or bike paths, and sidewalks. And each one of those has their own separate laws that need to be addressed. The reasons why it would be good to have this is in looking at the first four things that I mentioned: encouraging bicycles, reducing overuse injury, reducing exposure to air pollution, and reducing confusion and fewer collisions. They're all kind of interrelated. Stop signs are usually on roads that are not heavily trafficked. Most roads here seem to have a good line of sight for these intersections, especially for a bicycle who's approaching generally at a very much lower speed than a car usually does. And bicycles have a lot better maneuverability. So that it's easier for them to predict whether a stop sign intersection is clear and safe. And if something suddenly changes, I know for me, it's real easy to stop because you're already not going very fast. So it's easy to change your mind and stop anyway. Traffic lights are a little different in that they are usually a lot more heavily trafficked. The problem at these intersections are what I consider to be threefold: censored lights, just timed lights, exhaust pollution, and the predictability of both the driver and the bicyclist. My observations are that bicyclists and drivers kind of be in three different categories: aggressive, timid, and overly respectful. The overly respectful are the ones that scare me the most because it's always, no, you go, no, you go. And then it produces a lot of confusion. And then somebody goes and both go and it's a mess. So in the states that this has been passed, the studies show a reduction in accidents by as much as 23%. Because there's not that confusion. There's not that, oh, I need to be careful about that bicycle. I don't know what to do with this bicyclist. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be 3 feet away, but they don't pay attention to the fact that 3 feet away, they could be hitting another car. Whereas if a bicycler comes up, they make their intentions clear. If it's clear, they go, and now they're out of the way. And a lot of the studies are showing that it just causes a lot less confusion because the driver knows, oh, okay, they're going. On the other hand, drivers also can get angry because, oh, they get a special privilege that we don't. But as addressed earlier, bicycles are kind of the same, but they're not the same. And the biggest problem I see with the stoplights when we've been commuting has been that roads were designed with cars in mind. Lights and intersections were designed and traffic studies are done with cars in mind. Bicycles are not just, they're transportation, but they're not like cars. And so while most of the laws can apply, as mentioned earlier, not all of them make sense, and yet we still have them. And so what I was trying to do was look at a no cost or low cost option that would help towns address the fact that I can be sitting at a light and I can wave a car to come up to trigger the light. But if they're timid or they're overly polite, they're not going to want to come up close to me. So the light never gets triggered. And now you start having traffic flow problems because they won't come up close enough to trigger the light, and I'm not legally allowed to go through the light. The laws that are in place for cars say if the light's not working, you can go through it at your own safety. but there's nothing in place for, well, the light's working properly for cars. It's just not working properly for bicycles.
Excuse me, Carolyn?
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's been over 3 minutes. We're gonna have to have you just wrap up what you
I
want.
was just getting ready to do that.
Thank you.
So the road designs were made with cars in mind. Sidewalks were made for pedestrians in mind. Mandating things be converted is going to be tough. Data shows that keeping bicycles moving through intersections reduces intersection confusion, lowers accidents, keeps traffic flowing more easily. It puts bicycles in charge of their own safety by taking the lead of minimizing everyone's confusion at an intersection. And I think it would be a great way to help make New Hampshire a bike-friendly place and a more green place. I do have testimony, but I didn't know how to send it with this new process. But I'm open to questions if people have them.
Tricia, can you
Yes,
let me know how to send it in?
Sure. Yep.
And it has some links to some of the data that I mentioned.
Sure. Carolyn, can you see my name on the screen there?
Yes, I can.
So if you just put a dot in between Tricia, dot Malillo.
Okay.
And then at the ledge, the email that is on the website.
Okay.
I should be able to get whatever you send, and I will send it on to Kirsten, who is the committee aide.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, and Carolyn, could you please state your last name for the record as well?
Carolyn Halstead, Halstead.
Thank you.
So any questions for Carolyn? Seeing none, thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
Okay. I do not see any other hands for this section. Are there any other? Oh, Senator Waters.
Senator Waters, yes.
Is Director Balecki available? Or somebody else from from safety?
Let me just look.
If not, we can connect with her after the fact.
I do not see her.
Okay, thanks. I think there are a couple of glitches here. Good bill, but a couple of glitches. So we'll talk about that in exec session. Thanks.
Okay. So we are on part
7.
This is a request for from the Department of Safety. So that the director's not there.
I do not see her. If there is anyone that would like to speak to part 7, which is relative to certificate of boating safety, Tim Dunleavy.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, Tim.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, honorable members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Tim Dunleavy, and I'm a captain with the State Police Marine Patrol Unit. And I, first of all, thank you, Madam Chair, for sponsoring this last year and it coming forward again this year. This is truly a housekeeping bill in the truest sense of the word. The language change in this bill does not change the requirement or the impact of the boating education law in our state in any way. For 21 years now, we've had a mandatory boating education law and requirement. And these dates that you will see that are being crossed out in this section simply refer to the phase-in period of that law. It came to full circle in 2008 when all of our citizens wishing to operate a boat over 25 horsepower had to have the course. So this just eliminates the dates within that section and just now states the fact that everyone now needs to have the course and have taken a course if they operate a boat over 25 horsepower. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, thank you for bringing this forward again this year.
Thank you, Captain. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Any other speakers on part 7?
Or is there anybody else that would like to speak on part 7? Please signify by raising your hand. I do not see any other hands. Senator Bertzel?
Okay, part 8.
Okay, so part 8 is relative to allowing emergency medical service chiefs and fire chiefs to issue decals for multi-use decal plates. If there's anybody attending that would like to speak on that, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, and we have Jeff.
Welcome back, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my testimony again. For the record, my name is Jeff Oberdank, and I'm here to represent the Division of Motor Vehicles today. We are here not to speak for or against the bill, but to point out simply a technical defect. If you look at page 29, specifically line 12, it begins with saying amend RSA 261B9. If you look at 261B9, all of the organizations listed there are charitable organizations, and they all meet the criteria of 501c.
Right.
Having said that, we certainly don't believe the emergency medical services fits under the 501c portion, but we do have a suggestion to move that to 261B3A underneath firefighter decals. Having said that, I can certainly take any questions, but that will conclude my testimony.
Actually, Jeff, I had a question about that too, since we did a lot of work on the decals. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Any questions from the committee? So we can certainly make that change. Seeing none. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Senator.
Anyone else for section 8? I'm sorry, part 8?
I do not see any more hands for part 8.
Great. So we're on part 9.
Yes.
And I know we probably have a number of speakers on part 9. And I'd like to try and limit people to 3 minutes and not repeating what everyone else is saying.
Okay, sure. Okay, so if anybody would like to speak to part 9, please signify by raising your hand. And you can do that if you are on the phone by pressing *9. And I will go through the list of hands. And our first speaker is Judy.
Welcome, Judy. Can you?
Thank you.
Judy, can you say your whole name for the record?
Yes, I'm Judy Bastian, and I'm here with feedback. I'm Judy Bastian. I live in Tony, New Hampshire, in a subdivision called
Judy.
Shore. Oh boy, working.
Do you want?
Go ahead.
Do you want to try to dial back in?
Well, I wasn't on the phone. I was watching YouTube.
Oh.
See? So if I turn off YouTube and dial in.
Yes. Or if you go into the Senate calendar and join with the link there, sometimes that connects you better.
Okay.
And I will call you again.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, our next speaker is, I'm going to bring him in, Jason. Jason, you can speak. Unmute yourself. There you go. Okay, Jason.
Yes, you can all hear me?
Yes.
All right. So thank you for taking the time to hear my statement today. My name is Jason Bujo-Midas. I'm the president of the Willows Homeowners Association in Dover, New Hampshire. I'm here to speak in support of Senate Bill 131. My association consists of only 17 homes on a road approximately 3/4 of a mile long. And that road is approaching 25 years old. The largest expense that we have is the eventual need to repave our road. Currently, our estimate for that is about $500,000. My neighborhood is in this position because its builder and then homeowners had the understanding that once the community was completed, the city would take ownership of that road. The city has since refused to do so based on the fact that the road wasn't built to the city standards. The city of Dover approved the construction of this road, but has now retracted their agreement to take ownership of it, ignoring the fact that it was the city of Dover that approved the road plans in the first place. They claim that they have to consider liabilities regarding emergency service vehicles and other public vehicles that would have to drive on that road, and it wouldn't be an acceptable liability. So in other words, the city is okay with the liability existing, but not if they, the ones who control the existence of it, have to own that liability. I live not only in my HOA community, but in the Dover, New Hampshire community, and merely want the same services and treatment as the road next over receives. I think Part 9 of Senate Bill 131 does that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Any questions from the committee? Senator Sherman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jason, for coming and testifying. Just a clarifying question. So was it the intent of the developer or the builder to allow the public to have access to your development or your community or your neighborhood or your subdivision? Or would you anticipate having your road resurfaced, but it would remain inaccessible to the public?
I can't speak for the builder. I have never met that builder and I don't know his intent, but I know that my community now would be willing to make it a public road and have access to the rest of the community. That would be not a problem.
Okay. Thanks.
Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Jason, thanks for being here virtually from down the street to me in Dover. And, you know, I really appreciate your coming to testify today. And this is a problem, as I'm sure if you keep listening, you're going to hear, shared by many, many communities around the state. And it's a really important issue. And my question for you, Jason, is that could you talk a little bit more about the assumption at the time of the formation of this and what kind of agreement you may or may not have had with the city at that time?
So I know through a few of my neighbors that are still here as the original owners of their homes, and what they have communicated to me is that they were told by the builder at the time that they purchased it that the city was going to take ownership of the road, and it would be a matter of when the community was completed, with all the homes completed and sold off, et cetera.
If I may follow up.
Follow up.
You know, this is not the opportunity. Maybe you and I could talk later, but I wonder if there's any, if there was any documents that you had that expressed by the builder. I'm not that I'm looking at that perhaps the legal liability here is a misrepresentation by the builder, but I'm just curious as to what kind of documents. So it's a while back, as you say, but I just wondered if you had some sense of that.
I would have to do some digging for you.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll talk offline, but thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any more questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, and next on my sign-up list, we have David Della Penta.
Welcome, David.
David, you should be able to unmute.
Almost. Nope. David, are you there?
Okay.
Here I am.
Okay. Yes, we can hear you now.
Technically.
Hi, David.
Hi, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, and members of the Transportation Committee for hearing my testimony this morning. For the record, By way of introduction, my name is David Delapenta, and I live at 32 Wisteria Drive in Dover, New Hampshire, and have been a resident there since 2008. Wisteria Drive has been a private road since its inception in 2007 and has been maintained by the Wisteria Drive HOA. The homeowners and members of the Wisteria Drive HOA fully support the proposed new section in Part 9. From a personal perspective, the financial justification to my support of Senate Bill 131 stems from the fact that annually the Wisteria Drive homeowners support the town of Dover in tax repatriations amassing well over $200,000 plus. The small amount of tax credit being proposed would be a small fraction of our annual tax bill and will help ensure that our private road is properly maintained under RSA 231-59, which essentially provides various repairs and/or maintenance deemed necessary for firefighting equipment, rescue, or other emergency vehicles. Furthermore, understand that under RSA 231-59, towns and cities have only authority granted to them by the state legislature. Hence, my support of the proposed amendment 72-87. I'd like to thank you in support of letting me speak my presence here, and also Senator Carson for bringing this up for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Any, excuse me, any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have Roger Savigny. Roger?
I'm here.
Okay, you're all set to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tricia, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Some of you I know personally, and it's good to see you again. I am a member, a resident at the Winbrook at Dover Homeowners Association, and I'm not going to drone on. I know you've been sitting on at this hearing for a long time. I support what others have said before me, and I can tell you that the Winbrook at Dover Homeowners Association has 72 homes, and our property taxes range from over $8,000 up to $10,000 per year per home. Yet we don't get the services that are mentioned in the bill. I've sent you some testimony with all of the numbers that apply to our HOA here, our association. So I'm not going to drone on recounting those numbers. And Tricia, or if you don't have them, please let me know and I'll send them again. And with that, I just want to say that I strongly support, and I'm here on behalf of my HOA.
Thank you, Roger. Any questions? Senator Sherman?
I'm here.
Hello, Senator.
Hey, Roger. Good to see you, Commissioner.
Good to see you as well.
I have a question. This is kind of a tough question because this is the part that I grapple with this section. And maybe, you and I have worked together many times, and maybe you can help me understand how I can support this. I have always felt that when a community decides to be a closed private community, that the assumption is that they are accepting the responsibility for their own maintenance, for their own services. And when you are a public community and you are open to the public and people can walk through your neighborhood and be a part of your neighborhood, then you have the support of the town, the municipality, and that's a decision that the community or the developer makes. And so with one of the earlier people testifying, they would like public services, but they're also willing to become fully accessible to the public. How do I square that difference where the public would not have access to a community? It would be a closed community, but the entire town would be footing the bill for the services within that closed community.
That's a really good question, Senator. And I'm speaking for myself now, not on behalf of the association, because that's not a question that I'm authorized to speak on for them. But for my own self, I certainly would be in favor if the roads are private and closed to the public, to open them. If the city is willing to take on doing the services or somehow compensating the homeowners, then I agree. I think it's fair for the homeowners to agree that the public could, in fact, drive on their roads or however you want to put it. But again, that's me speaking personally.
Right. Thank you. I really appreciate it and great to talk
Sure.
with you.
It's good talking to you too.
Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just also wanted to welcome Roger here. I can't say it's good to see you, but it's good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
You know, I guess I'm going to ask similar question to a number of folks. You know, you're taxpayers, and that, you know, obviously those property taxes go to a lot of things like schools and you name it. But really, doesn't this come down to the fact that why are you paying these taxes if you're not getting the services that other citizens are getting, even if you are on private roads? I mean, the fire and safety one bothers me immensely, that some trucks won't go into these roads sometimes. So is that, you know, basically the question that you're raising with this?
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for the question. As a matter of fact, yes, it is. And I've met with the city of Dover, with the city manager on more than one occasion. I was at one time president of the association and did it on behalf of the association. Was told that that it was contemplated in our tax in our assessment. I asked how. I've never received an answer as to how our assessment is different than anybody who has a similar home as I do that's not on a private road.
Interesting. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Roger.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Have a good one.
Okay, our next speaker, I'm going to try Judy again. Oh. And she's gone again. Okay. Sorry.
Poor Judy.
Judy, if you're on the phone, you can hit *9 and I can bring you in. Okay. Hello, is this Judy?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here.
All right.
Welcome back, Judy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak, because for you folks, it has been a long day, long afternoon on one bill. I'm Judy Bastian, and I live in Laconia, New Hampshire, in a community called Country Club Shores Lot Owners Association. There are 18 single-family homes here, and we do have an HOA, and we do pay an HOA fee. And I understand what the comments are. We've chosen to live here, and I do understand that. We do, in our private contracts, we contract out for trash collection, for grounds maintenance, for plowing, even for street lighting at the end of our street. So the city of Laconia, we are right in the city. They provide all the other city residents with street maintenance, including the winter plowing and trash collection and recycle, pickup, sewer, water drainage, infrastructure, and so forth. We do contract out for these at an additional cost to all the homeowners who live here. So by way of how much would that be, our private contract costs in 2020 for just trash collection and sewer and water drainage, infrastructure, maintenance, and the street light and repairs and snow plowing total some $13,107. For each homeowner, that translates to $728 a year. Now, I know it appears that to us, we are paying twice for the same services by virtue of direct pay through the association fees and through our property tax to the city of Laconia. And I do know that we did choose to live here. We made that choice, and it's not a question of whether or not I wish to move. Did I know when I came in that we would have association fees? Yes. But I'm saying this from the standpoint of fairness, because I feel we are clearly paying twice for the same service, and we're not receiving it from the city. So we support, in this community, we support this bill that does seem to provide some relief to all these homeowners. Thank you. Questions if you have them.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Sherman. You're muted, Senator Sherman.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not fast on the trigger there. So keeping with my theme of trying to understand fairness and choice here, what if everyone in Laconia decided to close their individual roads? Should there be a clause in this portion of this omnibus that would allow any neighborhood to make a choice to be exclusive and private, since every neighborhood is now paying taxes and getting services? Should there be the reverse, so that all roads in any town in the state of New Hampshire, all neighborhoods should have the freedom to choose whether or not to be public and private, and to continue to receive all of the services that they, since they pay property taxes, as you've said? What would be the impact on the towns? But in the interest of fairness, shouldn't everybody have a choice? If you can be a private community that gets all of the public services, shouldn't any community be able to decide to be private?
What I would say to that is that if a community, a neighborhood of 20 homes decides they would like to be private, then they would have to do what we do, which means they're going to take on the costs of maintaining that street, take on the costs of maintaining any infrastructure for sewage and drainage, take on the cost for recycle, take on the cost for trash collection, take on the cost for street lighting. So they're going to have to create for themselves an HOA. That's not going to burden the city, but rather provide the city with an opportunity to say, no longer do we provide trash collection, nor do we provide street lighting, nor do we provide any plowing. So it would be, in the end, a lesser cost to the city. The city will continue to collect property taxes from those homeowners, but they would not provide the service. What this bill does, from what I can see, it provides an offset. It's a recognition that we are paying for a service we're not receiving. We're not asking to receive the service.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker, David, I'm gonna Discroliers. Sorry, David, about that name. I probably messed up with that, and I do not see him on the list. David, if you are in the attendees, if you are here, if you could just raise your hand by pressing *9 if you are on the phone. Okay, we will go to the next speaker, John Golia. Okay, Mr. Golia, you should be all set. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Madam Chairman, members of the Transportation Committee, Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of SB 131, Part 9. You should have already received numerous emails from various citizens. You've already heard from some. I think I can answer a lot of your questions, so long as Tricia doesn't cut me off. I need to speak a little more than 3 minutes. I'm here to give you an overview of the situation. My name is John Goglia. I live in Londonderry, and I'm a director and the treasurer of the New Hampshire Private Road Taxpayers Alliance, Alliance for short, that has advocated for private road tax fairness. The Alliance currently has approximately 300 supporters located in 27 cities and towns throughout New Hampshire and as far north as Bethlehem. I should note that a previous private road bill, HB 1490, was introduced to the House in late 2019 and passed in March 2020. It was then laid on the table by the Senate in June 2020, along with many other bills due to COVID. Coincidentally, that bill was co-sponsored by your Vice Chairman, David Waters. Let me describe the core issue that we wish to address. These private roads, they vary from dirt and gravel roads to smaller paved roads to wide, well-maintained roads that are indistinguishable from public roads. These roads, they might have a few single-family homes, they host sizable single-family developments, or even contain large multifamily senior living centers. Private roads are found in almost every city and town. They are in rural, suburban, and urban areas. All private roads have one thing in common. No matter their condition, nor how closely they match public road standards, none receive municipal services, including snow plowing, repair and maintenance, replacement, or services associated with water, sewer, or lighting and infrastructure. So why do private roads exist? Some private residential roads were built decades ago, but many private roads are under development as we speak. Municipalities approve permits to develop communities with private residential roads that do not meet public road standards or sometimes barely meet those standards. We believe that municipalities like this arrangement because it absolves them of the cost and responsibility of maintaining these roads in perpetuity. As a result, private road residents do not receive municipal road services, and at the same time, their property taxes subsidize homeowners on public roads. That is patently unfair. We are aware of at least 2 states, and there may be more, that recognize this issue and implemented solutions similar to what we have proposed in this bill. We have spoken to municipalities about this issue and receive only deflection and unproductive dialogue. That's the reason we believe we need a flexible statewide solution. Municipalities have said that house valuations on private roads are uniformly lower than equivalent houses on public roads. We reached out to multiple appraisers who said that was patently untrue. In fact, home values are highly influenced by other factors. For example, lake, ocean, access, proximity to schools, etc. Since property valuations and assessments are not adjusted for private versus public roads, they're taxed identically, but private road residents receive no municipal services. Municipalities have also said that buyers of property on private roads are made aware of the ramifications of such a purchase, and in the short term, that may be true. However, there is no way any buyer has the expertise to understand and envision the long-term costs and obligations of living on a private road until several years later. The initial monthly HOA fees are generally severely inadequate to cover road maintenance, repair, and replacement costs as these roads deteriorate. So in summary, private road communities are a financial boon to the municipalities who approve them and the developers who build them, since the standards and quality are lower, and upon completion, neither the municipality nor the developer ever has any financial or legal obligations. Although buyers of property on private roads are made aware that the roads are private, there really is no immediate understanding of all that's involved until several years later, when they discover they have severely inadequate capital reserves to maintain their roads and infrastructure. Unfortunately, there is no state statute requiring developers to contribute to reserve funds. And lastly, This cycle of unfairness continues to repeat with every resale to a new uninformed buyer of property on a private road. We know that this issue is complicated, but we're confident that you'll listen to read everyone's emails and listen to the stories and of the other speakers and support SB 131 Part 9. I thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, John. Have a good day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You too.
Tricia?
Okay, our next speaker is Jim Michaud. You're all set, Jim?
Welcome, Jim.
Jim, you need to unmute. Okay. I will bring him back in after. Okay, we have Mark Moeller. If Mark, I don't see him on the list any longer. Mark, if you're on the phone, could you please dial or press *9, which would virtually raise your hand? Okay, then we have Matthew Niswinder. Hey, Matt, you should be all set to speak.
You hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. Hi. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Matt Niswinder. I'm a resident of Barrington, New Hampshire. I live on a private road, and there's a couple of points that I can make to answer Tom's questions, and I can quickly do that before I give my statement, if that's okay. I will try to keep it short and brief. Basically, most of these private roads are not closed to the public. Most of them are not gated. There are very few communities that actually are gated, and if they are gated, maybe you're correct in saying that there should be something maybe added to this bill that says that they should forego the town services or the credits because they're gated and they are not readily open to the public because of that. But these roads are currently used, these private roads are currently used by everybody in the community. It's just because they're private doesn't mean cars don't go down them. We get Amazon trucks and delivery services and you know, all kinds of traffic that go through our communities and our developments on private roads, which, you know, tends to wear on the roads that are being pretty much the burden of the people that live there that have to maintain and take care of these roads, even though the public is using them. And sometimes they use it just to make a shortcut and cut through to get to the other side because cutting through a private development may be quicker. So those are just some of the points I just wanted to quickly make to answer Tom Sherman, Senator Tom Sherman's question. So I hope that maybe helps a little bit. I'm ready to give my testimony now, and I'd like to try to get through it real quickly as possible and not repeat anything that's been currently said.
Thank you, Matt. That would be appreciated.
Sure. So I've lived on a private road for over 20 years. And prior to that, I also lived in a private development for 10 years where the builder was much like Jason's situation, was in a situation where he built and he was taking over, the town was going to take over the roads in the town of Rochester after the 100 homes had been built. Well, I was the 24th house. The 26th house, the builder went financially bankrupt and the development stayed stagnant for the remainder of the time. After that, I chose to move out because, you know, the town wasn't taking over the road. At the time, I did kind of understand a little bit of the commitment, but when the builder went belly up, it was up to us to create our own association to maintain the roads. So we were kind of stuck holding the bag. This is a situation that, you know, is not fair and is totally unacceptable. It's not the norm, but things like this happen. In my current situation, I moved to a private road. It's a dirt road, and where I've been for over 20 years. And at the time when I bought in, there was no road association, there was no HOA, there was no homeowners. At the time, it was a for sale by owner. I was told, oh, well, the neighbor plows the street when we get snow and takes care of it. He'll plow your driveway for 15 bucks if you want, you know, just work a deal with him. And that's what I pay him for plowing my current driveway that you're looking at now. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, you know, I wasn't aware of any maintenance cost association type fees or anything like that. I had no idea what I was getting to as a private road potential buyer. I did not realize that until probably about 6 or 7 years after that, when the guy that plowed everybody out left our community and moved away. Now we had nothing. And being on a dirt private road, you know, you can't travel up an unplowed road in New Hampshire very easily, especially if the snow gets deep. You know, anything over 4 or 5 inches, unless you have 4-wheel drive or a big truck, you know, even then it can get tough, it can get icy. So, you know, this is something that I'm sure is not, you know, it's a common theme across the state of New Hampshire. It's not a local issue, it's a state issue. My road was built in 1950. It's probably maybe a car wide, maybe a car and a half wide in places. You know, it really doesn't meet any town standards whatsoever, can't really be taken over, but a credit to the people that live on my street where we have 12 residents would be beneficial. It's time to try to recreate the inadequacies between the balance of the taxpayers for what private people pay versus the public people pay. And I think the bill does that.
Matt, it's been over 3 minutes. If you could finish up with your remarks.
So in closing, I would just like to ask that you support this SB 131 Part 9 to kind of make this become more fair, where, you know, the state recognizes, you know, the inadequacies between public and private roads.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the committee? Senator Sherman.
I just wanted to thank Matt for answering my questions. That was very nice.
Not a problem.
And
Thank you.
Tom is fine, Matt.
I appreciate the time to talk. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you, Matt.
Okay. And I think we are finished with our list. I'm looking for the names that didn't, I just have Cordell Johnston. Oh, I have a Tom Daniels. Mr. Daniels, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I live on 90, excuse me. Sorry about that. I'm also a brand new grandfather, and that's my daughter-in-law with my baby. I live at 90 Mendham's Landing Road in Barrington, New Hampshire. It's a 1 mile paved, probably indistinguishable from any other road, whether it be private or public. The intent, which is interesting because that's been asked before, this development, the intent was for a second road to connect back out to Route 4. That road, the developer, Masiello at that point, went belly up, and that road, that second road never got constructed. So our road is a mile long, and the town has told us it couldn't be taken over because it's a mile long, and they want 2 points of access or egress for that. And right now, as Matt had said, the road really isn't closed to the public. We've got neighbors from across the way who come and walk on our road. We've got people who drive here. Not all the residents like that, but we can do nothing really to control that. And so we pay very high property taxes. And I think, I don't want to give wrong numbers, but I think it's worth looking into the percentage of the roads that are private. My understanding is, and I'm not, don't quote me, but my understanding is that it's almost 50% in the town of Barrington. And so again, we pay very high property taxes on the road that we live on, and we don't get the requisite services that other homeowners and taxpayers get. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions from the committee? Senator Waters. Sorry.
You're just too used to
Thank
it.
you, Madam Chair. And, I just
Senator
want to
Waters.
say thanks to Mr. Daniels for coming in today. You know, he's got it right about Barrington, that's for sure. And I really hope we'll be able to find some way to do something on this. This is an important but very complicated issue. So thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Waters.
Okay. Now we have Cordell. Cordell?
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Cordell Johnston, representing the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And I guess I'm going to be the one person speaking against Part 9. And I just have to tell you, this would be a disaster for cities and towns.
Yep, it will.
You are talking about undoing something that has been the situation for, I don't know, 300 years. Cities and towns do not maintain private roads. The additional cost here for an average town is going to be tens, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain private roads, let alone Class 6 roads. There are Class 6 roads. I live on a Class 6 road. I also live near a Class 6 road, which has not been used in 100 years. It has trees in the middle of it that are probably 10 inches to 12 inches in diameter. This bill requires that municipalities maintain Class 6 roads. In many cases, that's simply going to be impossible. But back to private roads, there's the additional cost involved. But the other problem is the Supreme Court has said that it is unconstitutional for taxpayer money to be used for a private purpose, and specifically to maintain private roads, unless the property owners who are benefited by it pay the cost. There's a well-known case, any municipal lawyer, if you ask them, will cite off the top of their head, Clapp versus Jaffrey from 1952, which says only if the property owner pays the cost, and only if the maintenance is subordinate and incidental to what to maintaining public roads, only then does the town even have the authority to maintain private roads. So there's a constitutional problem there. And I have to say, it's fair to see a bill that has two constitutional problems, but this would also be a pretty clear violation of Part 1, Article 28A. an unfunded mandate to undertake a program that municipalities have never had to undertake before. I've heard all the testimony. I'm sympathetic to it. I understand people have a lot of concerns. I'll tell you, I mentioned I live on a Class 6 road. The town doesn't pay, the town can't pay to maintain the Class 6 road. I'd be ecstatic if they did, but they don't and they can't. I pay to maintain it myself. It's a big cost, but I knew what I was getting into when I built a house on that road. I had another point I was going to make. I forget what it was, but that's, I guess I'll leave it there. But this, I must tell you, this is unconstitutional. And I'd be happy to try to answer questions.
Cordell, I just have, if you could send Tricia a copy of the court case, and then if you think of your second point, or you can add that to it too.
Yes, I will.
Any questions? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Cordell, thank you for waiting all this time and for being with us. So I have a couple questions, if that's okay, Madam Chair. And I'll start with this one. So could you describe for the committee that process of approaching this if a group decides that they would like to no longer be a private road, then there is the opportunity now for that to have it be adopted as a town road. Is that correct?
Yes, there is that option. They would go, and it depends on the municipality. In a city, you would go to the town council and ask that the council approve it as accept it as a public road. In a town, typically, it would be, you would go to the town meeting, and the town meeting could vote to approve it as a town maintained road, or if the town has voted to give that authority to the selectmen, you could go to the selectmen and have that done.
Thank you. And another question, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Waters, but we do need to start wrapping up.
Okay, I'll try to be quick then. Maybe I'll just put it this way. If you have some sense of what other states do about this conundrum, could you provide us with some of that information?
I will try to find out. I honestly don't know that, but I can look into that and I'd be happy.
Maybe we can ask Senate research too, but thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Senator Waters. Senator Sherman, you had questions.
Very, very quick one. Senator Waters asked part of my question. If a town denies a reasonable request by a community to have their road become a public road, as we heard in the testimony, what is their appellate option at this point?
You can, if the town doesn't simply accept a simple request to accept a road as public, you can do what's called a petition to lay out a road, and that would essentially be a layout of a road is sometimes used for a new road, but it could also be a petition to, in essence, lay out a public road over a private road. And I'm not saying a new surface, I'm just saying a petition to make a private road public. That's a petition to the governing body. And if they deny that, you do have the ability to appeal to the Superior Court.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions from the committee?
I would just ask that Mr. Johnson send that court case to me. My name is Kirsten Koch. I'm on the website as the committee aide, just so I can get it to the committee members. That's okay. I just want to make sure it gets to you.
All right.
I will do that.
Anyone else out there?
So, Senator, we have Matt Nicewinder, who would like to speak for a second time has his hand raised. And a Michael Bresch has raised the hand.
Okay. We'll have Michael, who hasn't spoken, and then Matt needs to keep it to a minute or so. That's
Yeah.
it, because we need to wrap it up.
Okay. Michael, you should be, okay, go ahead, Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The first thing I want to say is thank you to all of you, because you've been extremely patient. And this is, I know this is a challenging issue. I'm calling from, or I'm speaking to you from Dover. I was the president of the Homeowners Association on Childs Drive, which is the street next to where David Della Penza spoke from. And I just want to express my support. I don't want to take any more of your time, but my main reason for speaking right now is to let you know my support for this bill. And secondly, to really sincerely thank you for your time and patience. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Okay.
Okay.
Send this one.
Matt, you've got about a minute or so.
Yep, thanks. I just wanted to quickly make a comment about something that Cordell Johnston said. And he said that he didn't know what other states did. Both the New Jersey Municipal Services Act of 1990 and Maryland 2018 code have put together laws that have enacted similar legislation to their private roads in their states. And this is something that the New Hampshire Taxpayer Alliance has uncovered, and I was told they are willing to submit this information in support of this bill, Part 9, to this Transportation Committee so that it can be further reviewed.
Matt, if you could do that, that would be great.
Okay, great.
And send it to Kirsten.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for letting me speak a second time. It's much appreciated.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
All right. Senator Birdsell, we have hands being raised. Tony and Linda Palanza and Richard Connolly.
They can give them a minute. We do need to wrap up. We have other meetings we have to be in.
Tony or Linda?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the committee taking the time they have, and Madam Chair and the rest of the committee members. I live on a private road as well in Dover. And I would question the idea of cities and towns approving private roads when they put the roads in and allow them. They purposely put them in so that they do not meet city and town public road standards. So I think it would be an easy decision for the town or city to then say, we're not going to approve the road. And they would probably have everybody in the municipality government go in that direction as well. So I don't think it's very fair for that to be the determinant, because I think they'll fall back and say, your roads don't meet our standards. And our road was only put in 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm not talking about a road that's 40 years old. I'm talking about a road that the town, the city of Dover itself does not meet public road standards. And their decision would be, no, we're not going to do it. I'm pretty sure.
Thank you, Tony. Any questions from the committee?
No.
Seeing none. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more speaker, and that's Mr. Connolly. Mr. Conley?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Richard.
Thank you very much for taking my raised hand. I live on Wisteria Drive. I'm the first person to ever live on Wisteria Drive. I've heard some comments from members of the board, of the committee, that people have a choice of whether they want to be a private road or whether they want to be a public road. And I want to dispel that notion by my comment. That determination is made between the planning board of the city of Dover and the contractor or developer who is trying to make a subdivision. It's not the people that buy into the subdivision. That choice is made well before the buyers ever get there. Are there any questions on that issue?
No. Any questions from the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, you were all set, Senator Britzel.
All right. I want to thank you all, thank the staff, and thank everybody for their patience. I really appreciate it. I know we all have places to be at 4 o'clock. So
did you want to exec your exit 4 bill? We could.
no, why don't we hold off until next week and we'll do all of them.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate it though. Do I hear a motion?
So moved to adjourn.
All right. Senator Ruth Ward moves to adjourn. Senator Sherman seconds. I will take the roll. Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Sherman.
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi. I'm going to presume that's yes, Denise.
Sorry, yes, I was trying to not make noise.
And Senator Broso says yes. So we are adjourned and we'll meet next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And we will be execing, but we will also have, I think, a couple of presentations as well. So you guys we'll see you on, if not before, on Thursday.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.